A hungry street girl finds a newborn abandoned in a dumpster. When she grabs the microphone at a tech billionaire conference and reveals the baby's true identity, security guards freeze. Maya huddled deeper into her threadbare jacket as the December wind whistled through the narrow alleyways of downtown. 3 years on the streets had taught her all the survival tricks. Which dumpsters had the freshest discards, which shop owners might look the other way if she lingered in their doorways during storms, and most importantly, how to remain invisible in a world that preferred not to see her. At 17, Maya had the watchful eyes of someone much older. She'd left behind a home that wasn't really a home when she was 14, choosing the uncertainties of the street over the guaranteed misery of her stepfather's fists and her mother's deliberate blindness. The city had been her educator since. Then a harsh teacher, but one whose lessons she had mastered. That morning had started like any other. Maya had washed her face with bottled water in the abandoned building she currently called home, carefully rationed her remaining granola bar from yesterday's panhandling, and set out to scout opportunities for the day. Maybe the bakery on 8N would have some day-old bread to spare. Or perhaps the coffee shop manager would let her sweep the sidewalk in exchange for something warm to drink. It was while cutting through Mercantile Alley that she first noticed the woman. There was something odd about her. She wore a heavy hooded coat despite not appearing homeless, and she moved with a furtive urgency that immediately triggered Maya's street instincts. People who moved like that were usually up to something. Maya pressed herself against the grimy brick wall, becoming part of the shadows as she had learned to do. The woman glanced around nervously before kneeling beside a large cardboard box tucked between two dumpsters. Maya couldn't see what the woman was doing, but she heard a soft murmuring that sounded almost like a goodbye. Then the woman stood, adjusted her hood to better hide her face, and hurried away toward the busier streets. Maya remained frozen in place, counting to 100 as she always did when something felt wrong. The city had taught her patience. 2. When she finally approached the box, Maya expected drugs, maybe, or stolen goods, things people sometimes abandon when deals went wrong. What she didn't expect was the small, squirming bundle inside, wrapped in a blanket that looked incongruously expensive against the grime of the alley. "What the hell?" Maya whispered, her breath forming clouds in the cold air. Wide, innocent eyes stared back at her, a baby, no more than a few months old. The infant had a distinctive strawberry-shaped birthmark just below her left ear, partially hidden by wisps of dark hair. Beside the child was a crumpled note, torn as if in haste. Maya could make out only fragments. Cannot keep her. Find. Her father. Conference. Plaza Hotel. Maya looked around frantically, half expecting this to be some kind of trap or cruel joke. But the alley remained empty, indifferent to the small life that had been discarded like yesterday's trash. "Hey there," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. She hadn't spoken to anyone in days. "What am I supposed to do with you?" The baby's face scrunched up as if considering the question seriously before relaxing again. A tiny hand escaped the blanket, reaching up toward Maya's face. Maya knew she should call the authorities. That would be the sensible thing, the right thing. But something held her back. Maybe it was the torn note with its mysterious half-message. Maybe it was the quality of the blanket, which suggested this wasn't just any abandoned child. Or maybe it was simply that Maya understood all too well what it meant to be handed over to a system that processed children like paperwork. "Okay, just give me a minute to think," she murmured, gently tucking the baby's hand back into the warmth of the blanket. The sound of approaching footsteps made the decision for her. Without further hesitation, Maya lifted the box and backed away into the shadows. Whatever this was, whoever this child was, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that someone had entrusted her with something important. And if there was one thing she had in short supply these days, it was trust. "I'm gonna call you Hope," she whispered to the baby as they retreated deeper into the maze of back alleys. "Because that's what we both need right now." The baby made a soft cooing sound as if approving the name. Maya felt a strange warmth spread through her chest, a feeling so unfamiliar it took her a moment to recognize it as purpose. "Just for now," she assured herself. "Just until I figure out what a note means." But as Hope's tiny fingers wrapped around her pinky with surprising strength, Maya suspected that, just for now, might already be turning into something else entirely. Maya's usual hideout, an abandoned storage room in what had once been a textile factory, suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. She'd been proud of her little space, with its salvaged foam mattress and the small collection of possessions she'd accumulated. A battered paperback novel, a Swiss Army knife, a solar-powered phone charger she'd found in the trash, and a collection of clean clothes she rotated carefully. Now, looking at it through the imagined eyes of a baby, she saw only the dust, the draft from the broken window she'd covered with cardboard, and the absolute lack of anything a child might need. What do babies even eat? She wondered aloud, setting the box down gently on her mattress. Not granola bars, that's for sure. Hope squirmed in her blanket, making small noises that didn't yet sound distressed but might soon become so. Maya carefully lifted her out of the box, surprised at how light she was, how fragile she felt in her arms. Okay, let's see what we're working with here, Maya said, carefully unwrapping the blanket. The baby wore a clean onesie with tiny embroidered flowers. Another sign that wherever she'd come from, it wasn't a place of poverty. No diaper bag, no formula, no diapers, just a blanket, the torn note, and a small gold bracelet around Hope's wrist that Maya hadn't noticed before. It was delicate, with a tiny charm shaped like a bird in flight. Wide, innocent eyes stared back at her. A baby, no more than a few months old. The infant had a distinctive strawberry-shaped birthmark just below her left ear, partially hidden by wisps of dark hair. Beside the child was a crumpled note, torn as if in haste. Maya could make out only fragments. Cannot keep her. Find her father. Confronts. Plaza Hotel. Maya looked around frantically, half expecting this to be some kind of trap or cruel joke. But the alley remained empty, indifferent to the small life that had been discarded like yesterday's trash. That's real gold, Maya whispered, knowing instinctively that the bracelet alone could feed them both for weeks. But something stopped her from removing it. It was Hope's one connection to wherever and whoever she'd come from. Or more pressing, concern quickly made itself known as Maya realized the baby's diaper needed changing. With no supplies and limited options, Maya had to improvise. She sacrificed one of her precious clean t-shirts, tearing it into makeshift diapers, and used some of her bottled water to clean the baby as best she could. Sorry, kiddo, she murmured, as Hope squirmed uncomfortably. This isn't exactly premium service. Despite the circumstances, the baby didn't cry. She seemed to study Maya with curious eyes, as if trying to understand who this new person was and why her world had suddenly changed. Yeah, I know how that feels, Maya told her. One day everything's normal. The next you're somewhere completely different with no instruction manual. Once Hope was somewhat clean and rewrapped in her blanket, Maya tucked her into the box again and sat cross-legged beside her, studying the torn note more carefully. Cannot keep her. That part was clear. Enough! Some mother giving up her child. Find her father. So the father was somewhere to be found. Maybe he didn't even know about Hope? Conference. Plaza Hotel. This was the most intriguing part. The Grand Plaza was the most luxurious hotel in the city, hosting only the most exclusive events. If Hope's father was connected to some conference there, he had to be someone important. Maya pulled out her battered phone. No service plan, but it could still connect to public Wi-Fi. She'd have to go to the library later to search for information about any upcoming conferences at the plaza. For now, though, she had more immediate concerns. We need supplies, she told Hope, and I need to figure out what to do with you while I get them. The baby gurgled in response, waving a tiny fist. I'll take that as a vote of confidence, Maya said with a small smile. She gathered her meager savings, just over $20 earned from returning bottles and occasionally helping the owner of a convenience store unload deliveries. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. After creating a snug nest for Hope in the box, using everything soft she owned to pad it, Maya reluctantly prepared to leave. I'll be back as soon as I can, she promised. Don't go anywhere, okay? Hope yawned in response, her eyes already drifting closed. Maya hesitated at the door, struck by the enormity of what she was doing. She was 17, homeless, barely able to care for herself, and now responsible for a helpless infant. The sensible part of her brain screamed that she should take Hope to a hospital or police station. Let the proper authorities handle this, but something deeper, something that remembered what proper authorities had done with her own case 3 years ago, made her turn away from that option, at least for now. At least until she could decipher the clues in that note. Just a day or two, she whispered to herself, just until I figure out who she belongs to. With one last glance at the sleeping baby, Maya slipped out into the cold December morning, her mind racing with plans and possibilities, and for the first time in years, with something that felt dangerously close to hope. Maya's first stop was a discount store several blocks away. She kept her head down as she grabbed the essentials: the cheapest pack of diapers, a small carton of formula, a baby bottle. She'd done some quick math and realized her money wouldn't stretch nearly far enough, so she reluctantly added a couple of items she had no intention of paying for: a pacifier and a small package of wipes, slipping them into her pocket when she thought no one was looking. Wide, innocent eyes stared back at her. A baby, no more than a few months old. The infant had a distinctive strawberry-shaped birthmark just below her left ear, partially hidden by wisps of dark hair. Beside the child was a crumpled note, torn as if in haste. Maya could make out only fragments. Cannot keep her. Find her father. Conference. Plaza Hotel. Maya looked around frantically, half expecting this to be some kind of trap or cruel joke. But the alley remained empty, indifferent to the small life that had been discarded like yesterday's trash. The guilt was immediate but not overwhelming. Maya had strict personal rules about stealing. Never from individuals, never from small businesses just getting by, and never more than what was absolutely necessary. This, she decided, qualified as necessary. At the checkout, the older woman behind the counter eyed Maya suspiciously. Babysitting? She asked, scanning the formula. My cousin's kid, Maya replied with the easy lie. Emergency situation. The woman seemed unconvinced, but didn't press further. Maya paid with crumpled bills and hurried out, her heart pounding. Back at the hideout, she found Hope awake and fussing, though not yet in full cry. The relief Maya felt at seeing the baby still there, still safe, took her by surprise. Hey, I'm back, she said softly, setting down her purchases. Brought you some proper food and stuff. She'd never prepared formula before, but the instructions on the carton seemed simple enough. As she cradled Hope awkwardly in one arm, feeding her with the new bottle, Maya found herself studying the baby's features more closely. Hope had dark eyes that seemed unusually alert for her age, and her hair was a deep black that contrasted with her fair skin. The strawberry birthmark below her ear was distinctive, the kind of identifying mark that might help someone recognize her. Who are you? Maya whispered. Who are your parents, and why did that woman leave you in an alley? The baby offered no answers, only continued to drink her formula with single-minded focus. After feeding, changing, and settling Hope back into her makeshift bed, Maya pulled out her phone again. She needed to get to the library, but leaving Hope alone again so soon felt wrong. The baby was already drifting off to sleep, however, and Maya knew this might be her best chance to do some research. I'll be quick, she promised. Super quick. Public library was a 15-minute walk away, a place Maya frequented not just for the free Wi-Fi, but for the warmth and safety it provided. The librarians knew her as a quiet, respectful presence who mainly kept to herself, and they generally left her alone as long as she didn't disturb other patrons. Today, Maya headed straight for an available computer and began searching for information about conferences at the Grand Plaza Hotel. The results were immediately enlightening and intimidating. Starting tomorrow, the plaza would be hosting the annual Tech Innovators Summit, a gathering of the country's most successful technology entrepreneurs and investors. The faces staring back at her from the event website were those of the ultra-wealthy, the tech elite who appeared on magazine covers and news programs. Find her father, the note had said. Was Hope's father one of these people? A tech billionaire who didn't know he had a daughter? Maya scrolled through the list of speakers and attendees, studying each face carefully. There was something about this whole situation that didn't add up. If Hope's mother was connected to someone this wealthy and powerful, why abandon the baby? In an alley? Why not arrange a more secure handover? Unless, Maya realized with a chill, the mother was afraid. Unless this wasn't a straightforward case of a woman unable to care for her child, but something more complicated, perhaps even dangerous for her. Thoughts were interrupted by a news alert that popped up on the screen, a local breaking news story. Maya's blood ran cold as she read the headline, Infant daughter of tech mogul reported missing. The accompanying photo showed a man and woman standing before a bank of microphones, their faces drawn with grief. The woman looked vaguely familiar, though Maya couldn't place her. The article mentioned few details. 3-month-old Amelia Thornton, daughter of tech innovator Eliza Thornton, and her husband James had disappeared from their home under mysterious circumstances. Police were investigating. Maya quickly opened a new tab and searched for Eliza Thornton baby. The results included several society page photos of a proud mother showing off her newborn daughter a few months earlier. Maya leaned closer to the screen, studying the infant. In the photos, there, just visible below the baby's ear, was what looked like a small strawberry-shaped birthmark. Oh my God, Maya whispered. She'd found Hope's mother. And if the news was to be believed, the baby hadn't been abandoned, she'd been taken. Which meant the woman in the alley wasn't Hope's mother at all. She was something else entirely. A kidnapper, perhaps. Or part of some larger, more complicated plot. Maya logged off the computer with shaking hands. She needed to get back to Hope immediately. Whatever she had stumbled into was much bigger and more dangerous than she had imagined. And somehow, she, a homeless teenager with nothing and no one, had become the guardian of perhaps the most sought-after baby in the city. As she hurried back through the cold streets, Maya's mind raced with new questions. Did the kidnapper abandon Hope because the plan had gone wrong? Was the torn note meant for someone else who never showed up? And most importantly, what was Maya supposed to do now? The right answer, the obvious answer, was to go to the police. Tell them everything! Hand over Hope, or rather Amelia, and let the authorities reunite her with her grieving parents. But something held her back. The same instinct that had kept her alive on the streets for 3 years was now sending up warning flares. If this was a kidnapping, it had to have been an inside job. The news article had mentioned no signs of forced entry, no obvious suspects. Who could get close enough to take a wealthy couple's baby without raising alarms? By the time Maya reached her hideout, she had made a decision. She wouldn't go to the police, not yet. First, she needed to understand what was really happening. And the only way to do that was to get closer to the Thorntons themselves. She found Hope, Amelia, still sleeping peacefully in her box. Maya sat beside her, gently brushing a finger over the baby's soft cheek. "You're kind of a big deal, you know that," she whispered. "And someone went to a lot of trouble to take you away from your mom and dad." The baby stirred slightly but didn't wake. "Don't worry," Maya continued. "I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to get you home." As darkness fell outside, Maya began to formulate a plan. It was audacious, probably impossible, and definitely dangerous. But if it worked, she might be able to return Hope to her rightful family and perhaps discover why she had been taken in the first place. The Tech Innovators Summit began tomorrow. Somehow, Maya would need to find a way inside. Maya woke with a start, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar weight against her chest. She looked down to find Hope. No, Amelia curled against her, tiny fists clutching Maya's threadbare shirt. Sometime during the night, Maya had taken the baby from her box and held her close, both for warmth and from a growing protective instinct she couldn't quite explain. "Morning, little one," she whispered, careful not to disturb the sleeping infant. We've got a big day ahead. The Tech Innovators Summit would begin in just a few hours. Maya had spent half the night formulating her plan, or at least the beginnings of one. Getting into the Grand Plaza Hotel would be challenging enough. Its marble floors and crystal chandeliers were a world away from the gritty streets Maya knew. But infiltrating a high-security conference attended by some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the country, that seemed almost impossible. Almost! Maya had learned long ago that invisibility worked two ways on the streets. Most of the time, being invisible meant safety. People couldn't hurt or exploit what they didn't see. But occasionally, invisibility could be a tool, a way to slip through doors that would otherwise remain closed. "First things first," she murmured, gently setting Amelia back in her makeshift bed. "We need more information." With her phone charged just enough for a quick internet session, Maya connected to a nearby cafe's Wi-Fi and searched for more details about the summit. The conference would run for 3 days, with the main keynote address scheduled for 2 p.m. today. The speaker list included several tech luminaries, but most importantly, it included Eliza Thornton herself. According to the latest news updates, despite the disappearance of her infant daughter, Thornton had not withdrawn from the summit. She Articles speculated that she was putting on a brave face, refusing to let personal tragedy interfere with her professional obligations. But Maya suspected there might be more to it. Perhaps Thornton hoped that maintaining her public schedule would help find her daughter somehow. Little did she know how right she might be. Maya switched to searching for images of Eliza Thornton. The woman had a distinctive look, tall with sharp features and dark hair usually pulled back in a severe bun. In most photos, she appeared confident, authoritative, exactly what one would expect from a tech CEO. But in the most recent images taken after Amelia's disappearance, there was something haunted in her eyes, that makeup and professional lighting. All couldn't disguise. "That's your mom," Maya told the now awake Amelia, showing her the phone screen. "We're going to get you back to her today." The baby cooed and reached for the bright screen, obviously not understanding but responding to Maya's soft tone. "But we need help," Maya continued, more to herself than to Amelia. "I can't do this alone." In 3 years on the streets, Maya had made it a point not to rely on anyone. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But she had observed people, categorized them, learned who might be temporarily useful in a pinch. And right now, she needed someone with resources she didn't have. Maya thought of Sandra, a worker at the downtown shelter where Maya occasionally stopped for a shower or a hot meal when the weather was at its worst. Sandra had always been kind, never pushing, but always offering a fresh toiletry kit and information about GED programs, sometimes just a smile and a moment of genuine human connection. Most importantly, Sandra had once mentioned she had a daughter about Maya's age who was away at college, and Sandra was about the same size as Maya. "What do you think?" Maya asked Amelia, who was now fully awake and starting to fuss. "Should we take a chance on Sandra?" After feeding and changing the baby, using their dwindling supplies, Maya packed everything she might need into her backpack. She wrapped Amelia securely in her expensive blanket, then added an extra layer of Maya's own scarf for warmth. It wasn't an ideal for carrying an infant through the cold December streets, but it would have to do. "Okay, Amelia," Maya said, carefully cradling the baby against her chest. "Let's go find Sandra." The downtown shelter was quiet at mid-morning, the breakfast rush over, and the lunch crowd not yet arrived. Maya hesitated at the weird entrance, suddenly doubting her plan. What if Sandra wasn't working today? What if she refused to help? What if she called the authorities the moment she saw Maya with a baby? But Amelia was starting to squirm against the cold, and Maya knew they couldn't stay outside much longer. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The familiar smell of industrial cleaner and cafeteria food greeted her. A few people sat at the scattered tables, nursing coffee cups and staring into space. Maya scanned the room and felt a surge of relief when she spotted Sandra reorganizing pamphlets at the front desk. Sandra looked up as Maya approached, her professional smile quickly turning to surprise as she noticed the bundle in Maya's arms. "Maya," she said, keeping her voice low. "What's going on? Who's this?" "I need your help," Maya replied, cutting straight to the point. "This is complicated. Can we talk somewhere private?" Sandra's eyes darted around the room, assessing the situation. After a moment, she nodded and gestured toward a small office behind the desk. 10 minutes, she said. "That's all I can give you before my supervisor comes back from her coffee break." The office was cramped but warm, with motivational posters covering the walls and a desk cluttered with case files and sticky notes. Sandra closed the door and turned to Maya, arms crossed. "All right, explain," she said. "And please tell me you didn't—" "I didn't steal her," Maya interrupted, already anticipating the accusation. "I found her yesterday morning in an alley off Mercantile Street. A woman left her there in a box." Sandra's expression softened slightly, but remained skeptical. "And you didn't think to call the police or bring her here? Or to a hospital?" "I was going to," Maya said, adjusting Amelia in her arms. "But then I saw the news about the missing Thornton baby." Sandra's eyes widened. "You don't think—" "Look," Maya said, gently pulling back the blanket to reveal Amelia's face. "She has the same birthmark. Below her ear, like in the photos." Sandra leaned closer, examining the strawberry mark. Her breath caught. "Oh my God!" "I think the woman who left her was the kidnapper," Maya continued. "I think something went wrong with their plan, and she panicked and abandoned her." Maya, this is serious, Sandra said, her voice dropping to a whisper. If this really is Amelia Thornton, we need to call the police right now. No, Maya said, perhaps too forcefully. Amelia startled at the sound, and Maya quickly soothed her. Sorry, no, not yet. I don't think it's that simple. What do you mean? Think about it, Maya said. How does a baby get kidnapped from one of the most secure homes in the city with no signs of forced entry, no alarms triggered? It had to be someone close to the family, someone they trusted. Sandra frowned. Oh, that's for the police to figure out, Maya. Not you. I know, Maya said. But what if the police are working with the wrong information? What if they're looking in the wrong places? She took a deep breath. Eliza Thornton is speaking. I'm at the tech summit today, at the Grand Plaza. I need to get in there to talk to her directly. Sandra stared at her for a long moment. You can't be serious. I am, Maya insisted. I need clothes. Something that would fit in at a fancy hotel. And I need... She hesitated, knowing she was asking a lot. I need you to watch Amelia while I'm there. Absolutely not, Sandra said, shaking her head. This is insane, Maya. You're talking about withholding evidence in a kidnapping case. That's a felony. Just for a few hours, Maya pleaded. I promise by the end of the day, Amelia will be back with her parents. But I need to do this my way. Sandra paced the small office, clearly torn. Why? She finally asked. Why does it have to be you? Why not just call the police anonymously? Tell them where to find her. Maya hadn't fully articulated this, even to herself. But now the words came tumbling out. Because I was her. Once. A kid that no one was looking for in the right places. A problem for the system to solve. She looked down at Amelia, who was watching her with those alert dark eyes. I need to see her safely home. I need to know she gets there. Something in Sandra's expression shifted. She stopped pacing and sighed. Deeply. You know I could lose my job for this. I know, Maya said quietly. And I wouldn't ask if there was any other way, Sandra finished for her. Yeah, I've heard that before. She checked her watch. My shift ends at noon. I can sneak you both to my apartment, get you something to wear. But after that, you're on your own. And if you're not back by 6, I'm calling the police. Deal? Relief flooded through Maya. Deal. Sandra shook her head, looking both exasperated and amused. I always knew you were trouble, kid. Just didn't know how much. Sandra's apartment was small but neat, with comfortable furniture and walls covered in photographs, mostly of a girl who looked to be about Maya's age, presumably Sandra's daughter. It was exactly the kind of home Maya had always imagined normal people lived in. Bathrooms through there if you want a shower, Sandra said, gesturing down a short hallway. I'll see what I can find for you to wear. Maya hesitated, still holding. Amelia! Are you sure you're okay with... I raised a daughter on my own, Sandra said, gently taking the baby from Maya's arms. I think I can handle one more for a few hours. The hot shower was heavenly, washing away not just the grime of the streets, but some of the tension Maya had been carrying. She tried not to think about what would happen after today, about whether she'd be arrested, or worse, ignored. The only thing that mattered was getting Amelia home safely. When she emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel, Sandra had laid out several options on the bed. These are from when Rebecca was in high school, she explained. She was about your size. Then Maya fingered the soft fabrics. A charcoal gray skirt, a white blouse, a navy blazer. Gosh, clothes for a different life. A different girl. Thank you, she said softly. There's a pair of flats that might fit you too, Sandra added. And I found this. She held up a lanyard with a plastic ID badge. From when I volunteered at last year's Women in Business conference. It's not for the tech summit, but it looks official enough that it might get you past the first checkpoint. Maya took the badge, turning it over in her hands. Why are you helping me? She asked. Really? Sandra was quiet for a moment, gently. I'm rocking Amelia, because you remind me of me at your age, she finally said. Too stubborn for your own good, but with your heart in the right place. She smiled ruefully. And because sometimes the system does fail. Sometimes it needs a push. While Maya dressed, Sandra prepared a light lunch and continued to care for Amelia, who seemed perfectly content in the older woman's experienced hands. Maya watched them together, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Gratitude, certainly, but also a twinge of something else. Longing, perhaps, for the mother she should have had, for the life she might have lived. "You look very respectable," Sandra said when Maya emerged fully dressed, almost like a young intern or assistant. Maya glanced at herself in the hallway mirror and barely recognized the reflection. With her hair pulled back neatly, her face freshly washed, and dressed in clean, appropriate clothes, she looked like any other teenager on her way to a part-time job or school function. No one would guess she'd spent the last night in an abandoned building or that she was planning to infiltrate a high-security conference. "That's the idea," Maya said, adjusting the blazer to blend in. Over lunch, they refined the plan. Maya would take a bus to the Grand Plaza, using the last of her money for the fare. She would try to enter through the service entrance if possible, or failing that, would use the fake ID to bluff her way in through a side entrance. Once inside, she would locate Eliza Thornton, ideally before her keynote speech, and somehow arrange a private conversation. "And then what?" Sandra asked. "You just tell her I found your baby in an alley." Maya frowned. "I'm still working on that part." "You need evidence," Sandra said. "Something to make her believe you immediately before security hauls you away." Maya thought about the gold bracelet with the bird charm that Amelia still wore. "I have that," she said, "but I need more. I need to know who took her." Sandra leaned back, studying Maya with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said slowly, "there was something odd about that case on the news. They mentioned the nanny had been interviewed and cleared. So? So they never said who reported the baby missing in the first place." Sandra continued. "It wasn't the nanny, who apparently was given the day off. The parents were both at work. So who discovered she was gone?" Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "Someone else in the household," she said. "Someone who had access." "Exactly." Sandra pulled out her phone and did a quick search. "Here," she said, showing Maya an article. "Eliza Thornton's husband, James, has a sister who lives with them, Caroline Thornton. Apparently she's some kind of artist, has a studio on their property." Maya studied the photo accompanying the article. Caroline Thornton was thin and pale, with a tense smile that didn't reach her eyes. Something about her seemed vaguely familiar, but Maya couldn't place it. "Does it say anything about her in the articles about the kidnapping?" Maya asked. Sandra scrolled through several more search results. Just that she was devastated and helping the family through this difficult time. Nothing specific about her whereabouts when it happened. Maya's mind was racing. "I need to go," she said, standing abruptly. "The keynote starts at 2, and I need to get there early." Sandra nodded, understanding the urgency. She went to a drawer and pulled out a worn leather wallet. "Bus fare," she said, pressing a $20 bill into Maya's hand. "And a little extra, just in case." Maya started to protest, but Sandra cut her off. "You can pay me back when you're a famous hero," she said, with a wry smile. "Now go. I've got Amelia." Maya knelt beside the baby, who was now sleeping peacefully on a blanket on the floor. "I'm going to find your mom," she whispered. "The real one. I promise." For a moment, she fought the urge to change her mind, to stay in this warm apartment with Sandra and Amelia, to let someone else handle the danger and uncertainty, but she knew she couldn't. She'd started this and she would finish it. With a final glance at the sleeping baby, Maya straightened her blazer, checked that the fake ID was secure on its lanyard, and headed for the door. "Maya," Sandra called after her, "be careful. These are powerful people you're dealing with." Maya nodded, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "I always am." The Grand Plaza Hotel loomed before her, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to belong to another world entirely. Maya had passed by it many times, but had never dared to approach, knowing instinctively that places like this had invisible barriers far more effective than any security guard. Now, however, she walked purposefully toward the main entrance, the fake ID badge prominently displayed on her blazer. She had decided against trying the service entrance. Too many actual employees who might question her presence. Better to go in through a public door where she might be mistaken for a guest's daughter or a junior assistant. The lobby was a cathedral of luxury. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, the gentle tinkling of a fountain providing a soothing soundtrack, to the quiet bustle of well-dressed people moving purposefully to and fro. Maya forced herself not to gawk, to move with the same easy confidence as everyone else. Signs directed conference attendees to a registration area to the right of the stage. Main lobby. Maya spotted a line of people checking in. receiving real badges and conference materials. She would never make it through that checkpoint. But beyond it, she could see the entrance to a large ballroom where staff were making final preparations for the keynote address. Maya circled the perimeter of the lobby, looking for an opening. She noticed the service corridor near the restrooms, partially hidden behind a decorative screen. As she approached, a hotel employee emerged, pushing a cart of water bottles and glasses. This was her chance. Maya waited until the employee had moved away, then slipped behind the screen and into the corridor. Her heart was pounding, but she maintained her purposeful stride. Act like you belong, she reminded herself. Act like you have every right to be here. The corridor led to a maze of back hallways and smaller conference rooms. Maya followed the sounds of activity, eventually finding herself in a staging area behind the main ballroom. Staff hurried back and forth, checking microphones, adjusting lighting, completely focused on their tasks. Maya spotted a stack of conference programs on a table and casually picked one up, pretending to study it while scanning the room for some sign of Eliza Thornton. According to the program, the keynote would begin in just 30 minutes. A commotion near a side door caught her attention. A group of people entered, surrounded by what appeared to be security personnel. In the center of the group was a tall, slender woman with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Eliza Thornton. In person, she looked even more haunted than in the recent photographs. There were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite disguise, and a tightness to her mouth that spoke of barely contained emotion. She nodded mechanically as a man in a suit, presumably a conference organizer, spoke to her in low tones. Maya's breath caught. This was it. This was her chance. But how to approach? The security personnel were vigilant, creating a clear buffer zone around Thornton. Maya couldn't simply walk up and start talking. She noticed a young woman with a clipboard who seemed to be coordinating the speaker preparations. Maya straightened her posture and approached her confidently. "Excuse me," she said, keeping her voice low but firm. "I have an urgent message for Miss Thornton. It's personal, not related to the conference. Where can I find her after her speech?" The coordinator barely glanced at Maya, too busy with her own tasks. There's a VIP reception in the Maple Room immediately following the keynote," she said. "But it's strictly invitation only." "Of course," Maya said, as if this were perfectly reasonable. "And where is the Maple Room?" "Second floor, north wing," the woman replied, already turning away to address another issue. Maya retreated, clutching this new information. The VIP reception might be her best chance, but getting in would be challenging. She needed a better plan. As she contemplated her next move, Maya noticed another woman entering the staging area. This one moved with less purpose, almost hovering at the edges of Eliza Thornton's entourage. She was thin and pale, with light brown hair cut in an expensive but severe style. Something about her seemed familiar. Maya consulted her phone quickly, pulling up the article Sandra had shown her. There, in a small photo alongside the main image of Eliza and James Thornton, was Caroline Thornton, the same woman who had just entered the staging area. Maya's pulse quickened. Here was the sister-in-law, the woman who lived in the Thornton household, who would have had access to the baby. Could she be involved in the kidnapping? If so, what was she doing here? Maya edged closer, trying to overhear the conversation. Carolyn seemed to be attempting to speak with Eliza, but the security personnel were keeping her at a distance. Maya, couldn't make out the words, but the body language was clear. Carolyn was agitated, insistent, while Eliza was cold, dismissive. Suddenly, Caroline turned and stormed away, heading toward a door marked "Staff Only." On impulse, Maya followed, keeping a safe distance but moving quickly enough not to lose her. The door led to another service corridor, this one quieter and less trafficked than the one Maya had used earlier. Carolyn moved with purpose now, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. She pulled out a phone and began speaking rapidly, her voice echoing slightly in the empty hallway. "It's not working," Maya heard her say. "She won't listen to me. She's going through with the speech." Maya pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear more. "Well, what did you expect?" Caroline continued, her voice rising with frustration. That she'd just cancel everything because I asked her to, after what happened with the baby?" There was a pause as she listened to the person on the other end of the call. "No, I can't just... Look, we need to move up the timeline. If she makes this announcement today, everything changes." Another pause. Fine. Meet me at the service entrance in 10 minutes and bring the papers. Caroline ended the call and continued down the corridor, disappearing around a corner. Maya stood frozen, her mind racing to process what she just heard. It wasn't definitive proof of anything, but it certainly sounded suspicious. What announcement was Eliza planning to make? What papers was Caroline meeting someone to collect? Maya checked the time. The keynote would begin in 15 minutes. She needed to be there to hear whatever announcement Caroline was so concerned about. But she also needed to find out what Caroline was up to. After a moment's hesitation, Maya decided to follow Caroline. The keynote would be recorded, reported on. Whatever Eliza announced would be public knowledge within hours. But Caroline's secret meeting might provide the evidence Maya needed. She hurried down the corridor, following. The sound of Caroline's retreating footsteps. The service entrance, Caroline had said. Maya just had to figure out where that was. The corridor branched, and Maya hesitated. Left or right? She took a chance and went left, moving as quietly as possible. The hallway turned again and suddenly opened into a large receiving area. Loading docks were visible through glass doors. At the far end, and a security guard sat at a small desk near the entrance. Maya ducked behind a stack of folded banquet tables, heart pounding. She was in the right place. This had to be the service entrance Caroline had mentioned. But now what? She couldn't just stand here in the open, waiting. A door opened and Caroline entered the receiving area. She nodded curtly to the security guard, who barely looked up from his phone. She then positioned herself near the loading dock doors, checking her watch impatiently. Maya crouched lower, trying to make herself as small as possible. From her hiding place, she had a clear view of the entrance, but was reasonably well concealed. Now she just had to wait. She didn't have to wait long. Less than 5 minutes later, a nondescript sedan pulled up to the loading dock. A man in a dark suit emerged, carrying a slim briefcase. He scanned the area before approaching the doors. The security guard finally looked up, but to Maya's surprise, he simply waved the man through without checking any ID or asking any questions, almost as if he had been expecting him. Caroline stepped forward to meet the man. "You're late," Maya heard her say. "Traffic," the man replied tersely. "Do you have what I asked for?" Caroline reached into her purse and withdrew what looked like a USB drive. "Everything you need," she said. "Financial records, communications, proof of what she's been doing." The man took the drive and handed Caroline the briefcase. "The papers are all there," he said. "Once you sign, the transfer is complete. Untraceable." "And the money?" Caroline asked. "Already in the offshore account," the man assured her. As agreed, Maya's mind was working overtime. This sounded like some kind of illegal transaction, possibly corporate espionage, given the mention of financial records. But what did it have to do with Amelia's kidnapping? Caroline opened the briefcase, quickly scanning the documents inside. Satisfied, she nodded. "I'll sign these now," she said. "I want this done before her speech." As Caroline bent over the briefcase, something fell from her purse, a small, crumpled piece of paper. Neither she nor the man noticed as it fluttered to the ground. Maya watched as Caroline signed several documents, handed them back to the man, and closed the briefcase. They exchanged a few more words that Maya couldn't hear. Then the man departed the way he had come. Caroline stood for a moment, clutching the briefcase, a small smile playing at her lips. Then she turned and walked back the way she had come, leaving the dropped paper forgotten on the floor. Maya waited until both Caroline and the security guard, who had returned to his phone, were thoroughly distracted before slipping from her hiding place. Moving as silently as possible, she retrieved the dropped paper and retreated to the safety of the corridor. Only when she was well away from the receiving area did Maya examine her find. It was a torn piece of notepaper, crumpled and slightly dirty. On it was a partial message in hurried handwriting. "Cannot keep her any longer. Find her father at the conference. Plaza Hotel. Make sure he..." The rest was torn away. But Maya recognized it immediately. It was the missing portion of the note she had found with Amelia in the alley. Everything suddenly clicked into place. Carolyn hadn't just been involved in the kidnapping. She had orchestrated it, possibly as leverage against Eliza or as part of some larger corporate scheme. But something had gone wrong. The person Caroline had hired to take Amelia had panicked or had a change of heart and had abandoned the baby instead of delivering her to whatever destination had been planned. And now Caroline was engaged in some kind of financial transaction One she wanted completed before Eliza's speech, before some announcement that would change everything. Maya glanced at her phone. The keynote was about to begin. She needed to get to the ballroom to warn Eliza, but with what evidence? A torn piece of paper that matched another torn piece of paper? It wasn't enough. She needed more, and she needed to get to Eliza before Caroline did. Maya rushed back toward the main ballroom, her mind racing. The VIP reception after the speech would be her best chance. But she needed to get in past security with enough evidence to make Eliza listen. As she approached the ballroom, she could hear the sound of applause. The keynote was beginning. Maya slipped in through a side door and found a spot at the back of the room, partially hidden behind a large decorative plant. On stage, a conference organizer was introducing Eliza Thornton, listing her accomplishments and contributions to the tech industry. And then Eliza herself appeared, walking to the podium with measured steps, her face a mask of professional composure. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady despite the strain evident in her posture. "I know many of you have heard about a personal tragedy my family is experiencing right now. I want to thank you all for your concern and support during this difficult time." She paused, taking a deep breath. "Today, I had planned to make an announcement about the future of Thornton. Tech! That announcement will still happen, but first I want to speak about something else. Something I've been considering for a long time, but which recent events have made all the more urgent." Maya scanned the room, looking for Carolyn. She spotted her near the front, sitting rigidly in her chair, the briefcase clutched tightly on her lap. "For the past 5 years," Eliza continued, "I've been investigating financial irregularities within my own company. What I discovered was a sophisticated embezzlement scheme, one that has diverted millions of dollars to offshore accounts." A murmur ran through the audience. Maya saw Caroline tense visibly. "Today, I'm announcing that I've identified the person responsible," Eliza said, her voice growing stronger. "And I've turned over all evidence to the authorities. Arrests will be made within the hour." Caroline stood abruptly, drawing looks from those seated near her. She clutched the briefcase to her chest, her face a mask of panic. "But that's not all," Eliza continued. "The personal tragedy I mentioned, the disappearance of my daughter, I now have reason to believe is connected to this financial crime. The person responsible for stealing from my company is also responsible for taking my child." Gasps rippled through the audience. Security personnel began moving toward the edges of the room, suddenly alert. "Caroline," Eliza said directly, her voice cutting through the growing commotion, "I know what you've done." All eyes turned to Caroline, who stood frozen in the aisle. For a moment, the room was utterly silent. Then Caroline bolted for the exit. Maya didn't hesitate as security rushed. Toward Caroline, Maya slipped through the crowd, heading for the stage. This was her chance. In the chaos, she might be able to reach Eliza directly, but she wasn't the only one with that idea. As security personnel converged on Caroline, a second figure broke away from the crowd. The man from the service entrance, the one who had given Caroline the briefcase. He was moving rapidly toward the stage, his hand reaching inside his jacket. Maya's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about money or corporate espionage. This was something much darker. She changed course, no longer trying to reach Eliza, but instead intercepting the man's path. Without a clear plan, acting purely on instinct, Maya grabbed a heavy crystal award from a display table and swung it with all her might. The award connected with the man's arm just as he withdrew a gun from his jacket. The weapon clattered to the floor and the man howled in pain. Security personnel, alerted by the commotion, tackled him to the ground. The ballroom erupted into chaos. People screamed and rushed for the exits. On stage, Eliza's security team formed a protective circle around her, hustling her toward a back entrance. Maya stood in the midst of the pandemonium, still clutching the now broken award. She had stopped the gunman, but she had lost her chance to speak to Eliza, and she still had no way to prove that she knew where Amelia was. As security began to clear the room, Maya made a split-second decision. She dropped the award and ran for the stage, ducking under the arm of a security guard who tried to stop her. "Eliza!" she shouted. "I know where your baby is." Eliza, already being ushered through the exit, paused and turned. Her eyes met Maya's, across the chaotic room. "Please," Maya cried. "I found her. I can take you to her." A security guard grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her back. "Kid, you need to leave now." "Wait!" Eliza's voice cut through the noise. She stepped away from her security team, ignoring their protests. "Let her speak." The guard hesitated, still holding Maya's arm. Eliza approached cautiously, her security team hovering anxiously around her. "What do you know about my daughter?" "More," she asked, her voice controlled but trembling slightly. Maya reached into her pocket and withdrew the torn piece of paper she had found where Caroline dropped it. "This matches a note I found yesterday," she said, "with your baby, in an alley, near Mercantile Street." Eliza's composure cracked. "You found her yesterday? And you didn't go to the police?" "I was afraid," Maya admitted. "I thought whoever took her might have connections, might be watching, and I was right." She nodded toward where the gunman was being restrained. "Caroline arranged it all. She hired someone to take Amelia, but something went wrong. The person abandoned her instead." "Where is she now?" Eliza demanded, her voice urgent. "Where is my daughter?" "She's safe," Maya assured her. "I've been taking care of her. She's with a friend right now, not far from here." Eliza stared at Maya for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether to believe her. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" she finally asked. Maya hesitated, then said, "She has a strawberry birthmark just below her left ear, and she wears a gold bracelet with a bird charm." Eliza's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "Take me to her," she whispered, "now." As security personnel continued to manage the chaos in the ballroom, detaining both Caroline and the gunman, Eliza's personal security team escorted Maya and Eliza to a waiting car. Maya gave them Sandra's address, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had done it. She had found Amelia's mother. She had helped expose Caroline's crimes. But what would happen now? Would she be arrested for not going to the police? Would she be separated from Amelia forever? As the car pulled away from the Grand Plaza Hotel, Maya glanced back at the gleaming tower. Just hours ago, it had seemed like an impenetrable fortress, a symbol of a world she could never be part of. Now she was leaving it behind, sitting beside one of the most powerful women in the tech industry, about to reunite a mother with her child. The streets of the city had taught Maya many things, but today she had learned something new. Sometimes invisibility wasn't the answer. Sometimes you had to make yourself seen. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she weaved through the crowd of tech elites, their conversations about market shares and venture capital washing over her like white noise. Hope, or Amelia, as Maya now knew her to be, was nestled against her chest, hidden beneath the oversized blazer Ms. Chen had lent her. The baby remained miraculously quiet, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. The Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom was a monument to luxury Maya had never imagined. Crystal chandeliers that dripped light onto marble floors, elaborate floral arrangements, taller than Maya herself, and tables laden with food that could have fed everyone at Eastside Shelter for a week. The contrast between this world and the alleyway where she'd found Amelia just days ago was jarring. "Excuse me," Maya murmured, slipping between two men in expensive suits. Her eyes never left the stage, where tech industry luminaries were being introduced one by one. She recognized them from her research. Founders of apps she couldn't afford to use, creators of devices she'd only seen in store windows, investors whose net worth exceeded the GDP of small countries. They all shared the same polished veneer, the same confident stance of people unaccustomed to being told no. But Maya was looking for one face in particular. When Eliza Thornton appeared at the side of the stage, Maya almost gasped aloud. In person, the tech mogul was both more and less than her photo suggested. Taller, more striking, with an intensity that cameras couldn't capture, but also more human, with shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite conceal, and a tension in her shoulders visible even from a distance. She's been through hell," Maya whispered to Amelia. "Your mom's been through hell looking for you." As if on cue, the baby squirmed slightly. Maya adjusted her position, careful to keep Amelia hidden while maintaining a clear view of the stage. And now, the moderator's voice boomed through the speakers. "We are honored to welcome our keynote speaker. Despite personal challenges in recent days, she has graciously agreed to fulfill her commitment to our conference. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Thornton Innovations, Eliza Thornton." The applause was enthusiastic, tinged with sympathy. Everyone in the room knew about the missing Thornton baby. It had been all over the news. Maya watched as Eliza approached the podium with practiced poise, though Maya could see the effort it cost her to maintain that professional facade. "Thank you for that warm welcome," Eliza began, her voice steady despite everything. "The theme of our conference this year is innovation through crisis. And while I had prepared remarks about technological resilience, recent events in my own life have given me a new perspective on what crisis truly means." Maya inched closer to the stage, her borrowed heels clicking softly on the marble floor. Several heads turned briefly in her direction, but the audience's attention quickly returned to Eliza's compelling presence. "When we face our darkest moments," Eliza continued, "we discover what truly matters. For me, these past days have clarified that no technological breakthrough, no market valuation, no professional achievement means anything compared to her." Voice caught just for a moment before she regained control. "Compared to family." Maya was now only 3 rows from the front. She could see Eliza's knuckles whitening as she gripped the podium. In that moment, Maya made her decision. She wouldn't wait for the speech to end. She wouldn't try to arrange a private meeting that might never happen. The truth needed to come out now. With trembling hands, Maya unbuttoned the blazer and gently shifted Amelia into a more visible position against her shoulder. The baby blinked at the bright lights, but remained remarkably calm. "Innovation isn't just about technology," Eliza was saying. "It's about how we respond when systems fail, when our carefully constructed plans collapse. It's about finding new paths forward." When Maya stepped into the center aisle, "Miss Thornton," she called out, her voice cracking slightly before finding its strength, "I think I have something that belongs to you." The room fell into shocked silence. Security personnel stationed around the perimeter immediately tensed, hands moving to their earpieces. But before anyone could approach her, Maya carefully turned Amelia to face the crowd. The distinctive strawberry birthmark below her ear was clearly visible. Eliza Thornton froze mid-sentence, her prepared speech forgotten as her eyes locked onto the baby in Maya's arms. For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Eliza's hand flew to her mouth, her professional composure shattering completely. "Amelia?" Her voice was barely audible through the microphone. The murmuring in the crowd grew as people realized what was happening. Phones appeared in hands throughout the audience, capturing the moment despite the event's strict no recording policy. "Security!" someone shouted, but Eliza raised her hand sharply. "Wait!" Her command cut through the rising chaos. "Let her speak." Maya swallowed hard, suddenly aware of hundreds of eyes on her. The script she'd rehearsed in her head seemed inadequate now, but she had to try. "3 days ago," she began, her voice growing steadier with each word, "I saw a woman leave a box in an alley off Mercantile Street. Inside was this baby. She had this birthmark and was wrapped in a blanket with your company's logo embroidered. On the corner." Maya paused, adjusting Amelia in her arms. "There was a torn note mentioning the Plaza Hotel conference. I didn't know who she was at first, but when I saw the news..." Eliza had descended from the stage now, moving toward Maya with security flanking her. The crowd parted to make way, everyone holding their breath. "The woman," Eliza asked, her voice tight with emotion. "Did you see her face?" Maya shook her head. She wore a hood, but she was tall, thin. She had expensive shoes. I noticed because they were so out of place in that alley. Red soles." A flash of recognition crossed Eliza's face. "Catherine," she whispered, then louder, "Where is Catherine?" A commotion erupted at the back of the ballroom. Maya glimpsed a tall woman in a designer dress attempting to push her way toward the exit, only to be stopped by security personnel who had reacted to Eliza's words. "My sister-in-law," Eliza explained, now standing just feet from Maya. Her eyes never left Amelia's face. "James's sister. She's been staying with us since Amelia was born, helping with the baby while I returned to work." Eliza's voice hardened. She was the only one home when Amelia disappeared. She said she just stepped out for a moment and came back to find the nursery empty. Understanding dawned on Maya. She made it look like a kidnapping, but why abandon her? Someone in the crowd asked. A distinguished older man who had been sitting in the front row stood up. "Because I changed my will last week," he said, his voice grave. "I'm James and Catherine's father. I named Amelia as my primary heir, with a substantial trust that would be managed by her parents until she turned 25. Catherine would no longer receive the bulk of the family fortune." The pieces clicked into place. Catherine had taken the baby not to demand ransom, but to eliminate her as an heir. Yet she couldn't bring herself to harm an innocent child, so she'd abandon her, hoping the baby would be found and taken into the system, effectively disappearing from the Thornton family. But she hadn't counted on Maya. "Maya!" Eliza's voice trembled as she extended her arms toward Amelia. "May I hold my daughter?" Maya gently transferred the baby into her mother's waiting arms. Amelia seemed to recognize Eliza immediately, her tiny hands reaching up to pat her mother's tear-stained face. The room erupted in applause. Genuine, emotional, nothing like the polite professional clapping from earlier. Even the most hardened tech executives were wiping away tears as they witnessed the reunion. In the commotion, Maya took a step back, preparing to slip away. Her job was done. Amelia was home. The truth had come out. There was no place for her in this glittering world of wealth and privilege, but Eliza's hand shot out, catching Maya's wrist before she could retreat. "Wait," she said, her eyes intense as they met Maya's. "You found my baby. You took care of her. You could have turned her into authorities or, God forbid, kept her hidden. But you brought her back to me." Her voice broke. "What's your name?" "Maya," she answered simply. "Maya Reyes." "Maya Reyes," Eliza repeated as if committing the name to memory. "Where are your parents? How old are you?" Maya hesitated, uncomfortable under the scrutiny of so many wealthy strangers. "I'm 17, and I don't have parents. Not anymore." Eliza's expression shifted as understanding dawned. "You're homeless," she said quietly. Not as an accusation, but as a realization. "You're homeless, and you still took care of my baby with what little you had." Maya shrugged, embarrassed. She needed help. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Eliza said firmly. "They wouldn't have. Many would have walked away. Others would have seen only opportunity." She adjusted Amelia in her arms, the baby now contentedly playing with her mother's pearl necklace. "You will be compensated for what you've done, of course." Maya shook her head quickly. "I don't want money." "Ah, then what do you want?" Eliza asked. "There must be something I can do for you." The question caught Maya off guard. What did she want? She'd been in survival mode for so long that wanting things beyond immediate necessities had become a foreign concept. But standing there, watching Eliza with Amelia, Maya suddenly knew. "A chance," she said simply. "A real chance. Not money, not charity. Just a way forward." Eliza's eyes softened with understanding. "A home? Education?" Maya nodded. "Throat tight." "Consider it done," Eliza said with the certainty of someone unaccustomed to obstacles. And more. As security personnel led the struggling Catherine away, and medical staff arrived to check on Amelia, Eliza kept her hand firmly on Maya's shoulder, refusing to let the girl disappear into the background. When reporters began shouting questions, Eliza stepped forward, still holding Amelia while keeping Maya close. "Today," she announced, "I came to speak about innovation through crisis. Instead, I've been given a masterclass in human compassion by a 17-year-old girl with nothing to her name but her integrity and courage." She looked at Maya with genuine admiration. The technology world talks about disruption and transformation. Maya Reyes has shown us what those words truly mean. 3 months later, Maya sat at the desk in her bedroom, her own bedroom, in the guest house of the Thornton estate. Textbooks were spread before her as she worked with her tutor to prepare for the high school equivalency exam. Through the window, she could see Eliza pushing Amelia in a swing in the garden, James taking photos with his phone. The transition hadn't been easy. Maya still woke sometimes in a panic, momentarily forgetting where she was, reaching out instinctively to check if Hope, Amelia, was safe. She still flinched at sudden movements and hoarded food in her desk. Drawers, old habits from survival days that would take time to fade. But other changes had come more naturally. The Thorntons hadn't just given her shelter, they'd given her purpose. Eliza had established a foundation addressing youth homelessness, with Maya as his first success story and eventual youth ambassador. When Maya spoke about her experiences at fundraisers, people listened in a way they never had when she'd been just another invisible kid on the street. Her phone chimed with a message from Eliza. "Dinner in an hour. Amelia's been asking for Maya all day." Maya smiled. She wasn't family, not officially, but she had become something between a big sister and an aunt to Amelia. The baby who had briefly been Hope now represented hope for Maya in ways she couldn't have imagined that cold morning in the alley. She closed her textbook and stood, moving to the window to watch Eliza, James, and Amelia a moment longer. They had offered her a family, not out of obligation, but out of genuine connection. And Maya had accepted, not out of desperation, but out of choice. In her entire life on the streets, Maya had learned to find paths where others saw only walls. She had navigated the city's hidden geography, mapped its shadows and secrets. But it had taken a baby in a box to show her the most important path of all, the one leading home. Grabbing her sweater, Maya headed outside to join the family that fate, chance, and courage had given her.